Okay? So a lot of people ask me, well, when is the next recession? My belief is that the impetus for the next recession, which you've studied, is really fiscal imbalances. Currently, we and other countries and corporations and individuals are still highly leveraged. That's why we are having basically a debt deflation, because the interest on all those loans and all those bonds have to be paid to the investors. That money is being crowded out and siphoned away from investments and consumption. So fiscal over-leveraging could create a deflationary spiral that then manifests into a recession and or severe recession. And I don't see that until 2018 or 21 through 23, and I'll show you the economics behind that. But just looking at the deficits, we have roughly 16 trillion in debt outstanding. We have a 16 trillion economy, so 100% of the debt to the economy now. Significant portion of that interest rate, the interest that's being paid on those bonds is taken away from discretionary spending. You have entitlements, you have the military, they're going to get the allocation, so discretionary spending as a portion of the budget is being crowded out by interest payments. The majority of the debt that's held outstanding in bonds is held by foreigners, particularly Japan, China, and the Middle East. So that adds a certain amount of foreign exchange, foreign country risk if they ever decided to stop buying our currencies and our bonds and start to revert back. That could have an impact on the dollar and an impact on interest rates. So we are at a point where we have a crowding out large amounts of debt, government debt that's issued every year that crowds out private capital, money that otherwise could go into private capital formation. You have very high interest payments that's crowding out discretionary spending, and you have a very high proportion of foreign ownership of our government debt. If you look at the facilities during the financial crisis that were created and how much money we're really talking about, you have almost $1 trillion stimulus package, $250 billion for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. You had budget deficit carryover, you had TARP, you had tax rebates, AIG bailout, loan to GM, Federal Reserve balance sheet that basically goes from $250 billion to $2 trillion overnight, $3 trillion in printed money by the Federal Reserve, $8 trillion total money supply in the economy. We're talking about a massive monetary and fiscal over-leveraging of the system in a position condition never seen before. So how do you unwind it? We don't know. Debt to GDP, you can see fiscal stimulus during the Obama administration and trying to stimulate the economy through fiscal policy. Monetary policy and fiscal policy, unfortunately both policies, you're basically just racking up contingent sovereign liabilities. And if we weren't the reserve currency, we could be looking at a debt issue. Infrastructure policies, this gets back to the Keynesian approach. Monetary policy, very accommodative, drive interest rates to zero, real interest rates negative, try to get the economy going. The other is infrastructure, fiscal policies, direct policies. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. We probably actually needed 2 of these, not just one. So this was roughly $1 trillion, tax credits and cuts, 81 billion, in infrastructure, 61 billion for energy, housing 13 billion, science 9 billion. So this is where the money went to directly stimulate the economy and get the multiplier effect and get people to benefit through jobs. I tracked that there was roughly $20 billion of public projects funded here in the Bay Area. And that's about $4 billion per year from 2010 to 15. If you take that direct money, those were direct fiscal inputs. If you add a multiplier on top of it, of 3, you're looking at a economic stimulus, fiscal policy, direct stimulus of $60 billion over those 4 years, here in the Bay Area. And that's one of the reasons why the unemployment rate here in the Bay Area didn't get as high as other places, because we had major infrastructure projects that were going on to keep the economy going, keep people employed. Financial institutional risk. Let's stop it and start.